To order this evening here, Cadillac Planning Commission, Monday, September 12. And we will, well, before I get too far, having a cell phone on, please turn off so that Judd doesn't pick you up in his audio. Please. Then I'll proceed here to do the roll call. I'm going to do it correct tonight. Wow. Job security. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And Mr. Adams, if you would please, roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Barnett. Champlin will not be here tonight. Van Lente.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Schichtel.
Here.
Gregg.
Here.
Fint. Kevin will not be here tonight. And Putvin.
Here.
We have a quorum, and I do expect the mayor, by the way.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The mayor just called. He will be here. He's running late. So.
Okay.
Hey.
Not a problem.
City attorney's running about 5 minutes late.
We might as well proceed with the agenda right now as it is.
As it is. Okay.
And because
We don't know. where
Mike's
we're at.
running late, and we're not sure. We can always break into it if need be.
Okay. So at this time, moving along, approval of this evening's agenda, right now is going to stand. I just need a recommendation that we move with this evening's agenda.
So move.
Robert Peterson, seconded by?
Smith by John, I believe.
Sure, by me, or John, other John. That's right, we got two Johns.
Motion by Peterson, supported
Mr.
by
Smith.
Smith to approve tonight's agenda. Gregg?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schichtel?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Putvin?
Yes.
It's approved.
Wonderful. Any public comments this evening pertaining to anything not on this evening's agenda? You guys being public. That's good to see you have people in our audience. That's good. And there being no public comments, okay, fine. Under new business this evening, no public hearings either. New business, we have downtown projects that Mr. Adam will enlighten us on.
Chair, may we approve the minutes first, please?
Where is I? Went right over top of that, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, I had to goof up something.
No goofing up.
I know, and then he's got me on this new thing, so my apologies. I'm just even have my glasses on too. Everyone have a chance to read the August 27th, 2012 minutes from last month. I did not see anything out of place.
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Van Lente / Schichtel.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Yes, motion by Van Lente, supported by Schichtel, to approve the meeting minutes of 8/27/2012. Schichtel?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Gregg?
Yes.
Putvin?
Yes.
Okay, they're approved.
Thank you. Okay, still no public hearings. New business, Mr. Adams, I will get there. Which is downtown projects. The list was in everyone's packet. Reasons, I guess. Yes, please.
Okay, just real quickly here, and again, we could always break into this if Mr. Homer arrives, or when he arrives. Essentially, what's happening is the Downtown Development Authority, they are putting together essentially a list of possible physical improvements, projects for the downtown, and ultimately what they want to do is to pare the list down to a workable few, so to speak. And but as of right now, essentially they want you to be visionary. They want you to. We realize money is always an issue. Assume it's not, for the moment at least. And the idea is that you have in your packet are the same ones I'm going to show you here. And these are the ones that have been generated so far by the Downtown Development Authority as well as others. And essentially, there's no action for you to take tonight other than if you want to add to this list. And that's really what they're looking for. They asked me to bring this to the Planning Commission to see if there might be some additional ideas. And so, again, let me just go through these. I'm not really going to get into an explanation of any of them, but this is what you have in your packet. So quickly, these are in no particular order. These are the ideas that so far have been generated basically by the DDA. Number one was implement a design theme for the downtown, such as a historic design theme, so that as buildings are renovated, as streetscape is put into place and so forth, that theme would come forth. Number two, improve the walkability of the downtown by focusing on the development of side streets, as opposed to continuing with the linear development of Mitchell. In other words, start looking more heavily at Cass, Harris, Pine, and so forth for different types of commercial development. Three was to move the city offices, the library, and the MEDQ offices, which are all public offices, to less strategic locations, and then redevelop those sites for business uses. And the former Widener site, the old Ford car dealership site, was mentioned as a possible location for the city offices. The thought here being that some of the most critical, most expensive, desirable sites in the city are being taken up by private sector uses, non-tax-paying private sector uses, and do they really need to be on the lake? Fourth was close Lake Street, essentially close Lake Street between the city park and the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion. As you know, it's closed many times throughout the year already, and the thought is maybe we should look at closing that street permanently, extending, connecting the two park systems, and then somehow rerouting traffic. Five, install new downtown sidewalks with steam for snow and ice removal. I'm not saying that these are all ever going to happen, but these are, again, anything went. Six, examine downtown streets and alleys to determine if one-way traffic systems would be helpful for vehicles, both motorized and non-motorized. Seven, redesign and reconstruct the parking lot east of the city park. This is between the city park and Mitchell Street. Reconfigure the aisles, perhaps put a farm market or an open-air shelter in this location, etc. Number 8, reduce Mitchell Street to 3 lanes with angle parking. Number 9, along Mitchell Street in particular, bury the power lines. 10, improve the rear facade of buildings along Mitchell Street. 11, remove the railroad tracks from the downtown. 12, modify the way in which snow is removed from Mitchell Street. Plow to the center and remove at night or early morning prior to traffic, with heavy, large equipment designed for fast and efficient removal. And a number of other communities were identified where this is going on. 13, to help improve ease of building access, install a walking platform along or connecting the rear facades of buildings on the west side of Mitchell facing the lake. 14, develop outdoor dining patios or cafes on the rears of buildings with lake views. 15, investigate the feasibility of a Lake Cadillac shuttle to bring people, such as folks in the Mitchell State Park, to the downtown. This is an actual lake shuttle type of, like a pontoon boat. 16, install canopies, connecting canopies along the fronts of Mitchell Street buildings to shield people from inclement weather. 17, improve views of Lake Cadillac from Mitchell Street. 18, something what you're dealing with now, improve wayfinding. They suggested create a committee comprised of representatives of the DDA, DCA, and others to examine this issue. Almost finished here. 19, in the core downtown, perhaps remove a mid-block building or two for purposes of opening up views to Lake Cadillac. This would also have the effect of reducing retail building vacancy rates and creating opportunities for elevated structures, retail space for use by tourism or specialty businesses at higher levels. 20, bring the White Pine Trail into the downtown, perhaps extend it to near where the farm market parking lot site is now located, and create a true trailhead facility with bike parking, lockers, open-air shelter, picnic tables, etc. And this feature might also be used by snowmobilers if they were brought into the downtown. 7, install an open-air shelter in the city parking lot north of the city park for use by the farmers market, art fair, and others. 22, coordinate the linkage of pathways or sidewalks in the city park with the planned Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion site improvements, and install pedestrian crossing signs on Lake Street between the park and pavilion site, requiring vehicles to stop for pedestrians while crossing. As you know, right now, they don't have to stop. 23, redevelop the area east of the AMVETS, the After 26 Cafe for parking. 24, concentrate retail development in a few core blocks, primarily the blocks like between, let's say, Pine, Harris, and Cass, those areas, and restrict first floor offices in these blocks. In other words, primarily focus on having the retail. I think we're almost done here. 25, provide financial incentives to business building owners who sign their restrooms for public use. This is a project that's being done in Traverse City. Be used by the public, and they get a little financial reward for doing so. In fact, I've been in contact with them on this. 26, capitalize on the city docks, the downtown fishing pier and docks on the lake, encouraging people, residents and tourists, to visit the downtown via their boat. 27, redevelop the downtown and shoreline landscapes based on professional guidance. Do selective trimming of the landscape to improve lake views, particularly from off-site. 2 more. Install a message board in the downtown to notify the public of events and activities. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And then 29, develop a multi-tier covered parking structure on the east side of Mitchell near the Northwood Hotel. So there are the ideas that have been put forth so far. Again, these have not been examined, analyzed in any fashion. But if you can think of any more, whether it's tonight or in the future, please let us know. Ultimately, what's going to happen is the DDA would like to convene a kind of a combined work session with you folks, with the DDA and some others, to essentially talk about all of these and paring them down into what you feel are the most significant, most important. And because what the DDA is looking to do is they're going to be updating their strategic plan. They will have some funding that may be available in the future because they're paying off some debts. And so they want to work towards doing some new activities in the downtown, and so they're trying to figure out what they should do. So, if you have any thoughts, you're not here tonight. I'm not asking you to approve or disapprove any of these, but if you have anything you want to add, just let us know or let me know.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They do have some interesting ideas.
These are not mine, by the way. These are the ideas. A few are mine, but mostly the ideas of others.
They could start at the northern end of Mitchell. I tell them how that steam thing works on the snow. If they want to just put it in there for us first, we'll give them a report how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I zag for you, sir?
Oh, Mike's here.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we let, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Let's let Mike go ahead, and I'll introduce Mike. I think you've all met him, but I'll introduce him, and let's let him do his thing, and then if he needs to leave, he can go back. This is Mike Homier. Mike, as you know, is the city attorney. He's with Foster Swift, and I asked Mike if he would come to the Planning Commission meeting. As you know, ultimately we have to do something. Council is expecting us to do something regarding medical marijuana. Right now, essentially, they're basically waiting on us. And so I've asked Mike tonight just to kind of briefly update you on what's happening with respect to the courts as well as the state legislature, and then maybe indicate to us what sort of things are happening with his other clients in terms of implementing an ordinance or not implementing an ordinances regarding medical marijuana. And I'll open it up for questions. I did invite Matt, Mr. Miller, and Mr. Lee. They've been heavily, involved or interested in this topic, so we did invite them. And
Excellent.
with that, I'll just turn it over to.
Okay. Hi, Mike.
Good evening. I'm sorry I'm late. It's been a banner of a day, so.
I can relate.
Unfortunately, my wife's sick all weekend. My kids woke up sick today, and so it's just been crazy.
Lot lands
all day.
on your plate.
Yeah. Well, let me start by saying that the issue of medical marijuana is in a state of flux. The law isn't clear. There are a number of cases that are on appeal to both the Michigan Court of Appeals as well as the Supreme Court. And so let me start with dispensaries, because that's always the issue when it comes to regulatory issues. The Court of Appeals, in a case called State of Michigan versus McQueen, held that dispensaries are not lawful. Okay? And what they concluded as part of that case is that the medical use of marijuana does not include the sale of marijuana. Okay? Now that case is on appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court, but oral arguments have not been scheduled yet. Okay? So a lot of our clients, municipal clients, have said, well, where does that leave us? And go back to another case that was pending at the time, and that was a case involving the city of Wyoming. And in that case, what the city of Wyoming did is they passed an ordinance saying that within the city limits, you cannot use property that violates federal, state, or local law. So, because the Medical Marijuana Act conflicts with federal law under the Controlled Substances Act, you couldn't use property in violation of federal law, that being the Controlled Substances Act, and therefore medical marijuana uses within the city of Wyoming were prohibited. That case went to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals struck down the city's ordinance and said, no, you cannot do that. That case, the city in that case has sought leave to appeal to the Supreme Court. We don't know whether the court's going to take up that case, but I suspect that it will. Although anybody's guess is as good as mine, I suppose. But it's one of those issues that is of interest to municipalities, and it's got to be resolved one way or the other. So I would expect that the Supreme Court will hear that case as well. So where does that leave you? It doesn't leave you in any better position than you have been the last 6 months, which is the law's uncertain, it's changing all the time, and so a lot of our clients, we're just recommending that they maintain their moratorium until it gets figured out, either by legislation or by the courts. Because to do otherwise, you can't possibly regulate. You can't allow dispensaries at this point because they're unlawful. And you can't really gauge the breadth of your regulation as it applies to medical marijuana, because you cannot pass, at least as it stands now, an ordinance that prohibits the use of property in violation of federal law, as Wyoming tried to do. And until the Supreme Court may either weigh in on that by granting leave to hear the appeal, or by turning down the appeal, that you won't know where that stands as well. So in terms of regulating this use, I think it leaves you in exactly the same place as a lot of other municipalities, and that is, for you to try and do anything right now, it's a guessing game.
Interesting. So we're no farther ahead, really, than we were almost the last time you were here, as far as moving forwards. We're not.
No, I think that the problem with the law is that one, it was a ballot initiative, and so it's not as clearly as written as you might have had it been a legislative enactment. And so from through the courts, and the courts simply take time to resolve those, and until they get resolved, I could guess on how you may want to regulate it, but whether or not that regulation proves useful or lawful is a different question, because the court may then define the scope of the act so that going forward down the road in a period of 6 months to a year, you'll likely have a better idea once the courts define what's lawful and what's not, what you should or shouldn't do. But right now, I would tell you that without the Supreme Court weighing in on those issues, it's rather hard to guess how it might come out.
Anyone have any questions for Mike yet?
Did you bring us your legal opinions today?
I did.
With written in writing?
I did.
Looks familiar.
Yes, you've seen too many. Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll leave those with Jerry, and they are obviously attorney-client privilege, subject to privilege, so, but the cases themselves speak for themselves. Those are public information.
I have a question, if I might.
Yes, please, Mr.
In terms of, let's say, extending the moratorium, Mike, I mean, you know, and do you think there's an issue with the length of the extension, or the extensions we've had so far, if we were to extend it again?
I think that if you were to extend it without reason, there certainly is an issue. But in this case, because the law is so unsettled and changing so rapidly in terms of law, I think you're justified in saying we don't know how to regulate this. Not many, well, take the city of Lansing, for example. City of Lansing went out and allowed all these dispensaries. Well, what are they going to do with them now? And so it's difficult in that situation because they've got all these established dispensaries, which the Attorney General and the Court of Appeals is now calling unlawful.
So I take it those are closed?
You know, I don't think that they have been closed, and so it creates all kinds of issues.
Might have closed and reopened.
What's that?
May have closed and reopened.
Well, in terms of reopening, the Court of Appeals decision is binding precedent right now, inasmuch as dispensaries are unlawful and the sale of marijuana is not included as a right under the Act. The Act itself includes it's really not a right in and of itself, it's rather a defense to prosecution, which really are two different things.
You're probably not entitled to offer your personal opinion on how you think this is going to move.
Well, I certainly can give you my personal opinion, but it's just my personal opinion.
Right.
It should only be taken as such. My personal opinion is if this measure were asked to be voted on again, my suspicion is that it may not pass in the form in which it passed to begin with. Only because I'm not sure that, let me take it from a medical perspective. In situations where mother comes in to talk to a board or council while I'm there serving as the attorney for the board or council and says, I really wish that you would allow a dispensary want to sell marijuana to other people, but because my son has brain cancer, he's dying, and I don't like going to the dispensaries that I've been to. They don't strike me as establishments that are upfront and nice and clean, etc. And I want to be able to help other patients the same way I want to help my son, who's terminally ill. It's hard to say no to somebody like that. The problem is not so much with those people, it's some of the other people who, having the use of medical marijuana for what I believe are improper reasons, where you can get a doctor to write a prescription for reasons that may not be on the up and up. And I think that's what's really caused me personally, if somebody's dying of brain cancer, I'm not going to stand there and get in their way and say you shouldn't have it makes you feel better. That's my own personal opinion.
Right.
The legal aspect, how do you contain that use so that it doesn't offend or cause problems in other areas of your municipality? So for example, do you want in your commercial area multitude of different medical marijuana dispensaries in your commercial area, especially when you may be trying to do something else with it, like develop a downtown district of some sort? Are those the kind of uses you want down there? Then I think it raises real questions about where the use, if it is allowed, where it should be allowed, and what really it entails. I don't know that anybody has a problem with, I'm a primary caregiver to a qualifying patient, they come by my house, leave. medical marijuana, it's the dispensaries that's caused the problems, because those are sort of out front, everybody can see it, and it's out there, you know, in terms of your commercial districts. It's going to cause problems with owners next to that only time will tell. But you know, far be it from me to tell somebody who's dying that, you know, you can't can't do this to feel better.
Do you think in some of this legislation then, that it will redefine how they're used? Is that kind of what's going to play out? It's like the one you used in your example, so the law would frame those parameters for us to then go ahead and...
Well, I think you've got a couple issues there. One is whether the itself is constitutional, which still is not an issue that's been squarely before the court. The reason for that is because under the Controlled Substances Act, it's a crime. Medical Marijuana Act, you can, I'll use this term loosely, or at least it provides a defense to prosecution. There are a number of lower courts, mainly circuit courts, that have addressed this in the context of preemption. Does the Controlled Substances Act preempt the Medical Marijuana Act? In other words, has the federal government totally occupied the field of regulation when it comes to marijuana, so that whatever Michigan has done is preempted by federal law, making it unconstitutional in as much as you can't comply with both at the same time. If you wanted to engage in the use of medical marijuana, you are in violation of the Controlled Substances Act. And I think that that issue will be resolved by the courts. In Michigan, I think the other aspects that will be clarified is, one, whether dispensaries are or not allowed, because that issue is going to be before the Supreme Court. What is the extent to which municipalities can regulate that use? For example, then in your zoning ordinance or otherwise have a provision that any use of property within, say, the city limits must also be in compliance with federal, state. To me, as a land use lawyer, it makes sense to me that a city could put a regulation saying the use of property has to comply with federal law. I don't see the problem with that. The Court of Appeals saw it differently. So the Supreme Court's going to be asked to weigh in on that and decide it once and for all. But if I had a regulation, because we do this all the time, if we have a regulation, say in the city's code or otherwise, that says your use of the property cannot be of, say, environmental protection, okay, whatever the provision may be, safe drinking water, air issues, whatever. Does that provision then, is that provision unlawful? Because I see that the same way. In as much as you're saying, municipality is saying, can't use property in violation of federal law. And what makes that unlawful? Because the Court of Appeals struck that down and said, no, that's gone too far. The courts will tell us in due course, I suppose. One, by either accepting leave to appeal or denying leave to appeal on that issue. And then that will become the law of Michigan.
Are there states that have things in place that our state should be looking at?
Well, certainly other states regulate it differently, and while I'm not familiar with each and every provision, I can tell you just anecdotally, I'm from Colorado, and so when I go out and visit my parents, medical marijuana dispensaries everywhere. I mean everywhere.
Everywhere.
2, 3, 4 of them in the same strip malls even.
Wow.
Yeah, and so, you know, they regulate it differently than Michigan has. But I'm not sure that even Colorado has seen an end to the questions raised under their laws as well. So it's sort of an evolving issue. I mean, if I had my choice, what the federal government should likely do is reclassify marijuana instead of a Schedule I narcotic into something else that could be regulated and dispersed by pharmacies because they know how to do it. That's what they do.
Right.
And that's the way it should have been handled.
There.
But the federal government, not too long ago, reaffirmed the Schedule I narcotic classification for marijuana. So,
So without that budging, that doesn't make it easier.
yeah, I mean, it seems,
Sticking
it's,
point at that.
Right.
yeah, I mean, it seems to me that if you wanted somebody dispersing drugs, you would want pharmacists doing it. They do it now. But the federal government has not budged, although the federal government has also said, we're not going to prosecute these offenses either. So, you know, it doesn't make much sense from a point. But then the Department of Justice sent out an opinion to a number of different states saying, well, if you grant land use permits for these things, you're complicit in a violation of the Controlled Substances Act. So it seems to me that the Department of Justice is not on the same page either because they've sent out conflicting messages. Yeah, so, but you know, a lot of this is what you get with a new use. And not to compare it directly, but I'll give you the same example as with wind turbines, right? Same sort of issue. It's a new it's a new land use that not many municipalities had dealt with in their zoning ordinance. They are now dealing with it, but you have a patchwork of different regulations from municipality to municipality trying to deal with this issue. And the limits of that are only tested through lawsuits and through legislation and those things. And so, because I very soon suspect that because of this patchwork of regulation on, say, wind energy, that the state may ultimately step in and say all of these applications are now going to go to the PSC, the Public Service Commission, for approval and review, because we don't want 1,200 different townships, say, regulating wind energy with different heights, different setbacks, different sound levels. And so the same way they did with electric transmission lines. So now you have the Electric Transmission Certification Line Act, right? So that all goes to the PSC and local preempted. So you can't enforce your ordinances, the state's going to do it. And I suspect that that may occur with respect to wind energy, and we'll get some more definitive guidelines with respect to medical marijuana. But yeah, unfortunately, you know, all of our clients are asking us, well, what do we do? Well, I could tell you to, you know, try and regulate it, prohibit dispensaries, right? Because you have a foundation for that, and then just leave it at that for now. I mean, that's one option. So that the city could draft or write an ordinance that says we're not going to allow dispensaries and rely on the McQueen case. If McQueen gets overturned, then you got to go back and do something else.
Redo it.
That's always an option. Well, instead of doing it 2-3 times, let the courts define what's permitted and what's not. But everybody's got an opinion on that, so.
True. Interesting. Because we're kind of informal, but these gentlemen came if they had any questions. I mean, yeah, they kind of guided us as we went.
Totally up to you.
Gentlemen, if you have questions for Mike, feel free, because you've helped us a long way.
All in right now.
So I'm
There are
gonna include you.
two situations at the federal level I wonder if you're aware of. One is that the ASA did approach the federal government to change the controlled substance from a 1 to a 3. And now the federal Supreme Court is going to be hearing a lawsuit because they didn't change that. And that's going to allow them to enter medical evidence in court. And that's supposed to be done by the end of the year. Second, at the federal level, they proposed a bill now that would allow states with medical marijuana, as long as they're abiding within the rules, land forfeiture and confiscation cannot be used by the federal government. Are you aware of them two
Well, I was aware of the reclassification issue.
Right.
As for the confiscation issue, at least in my mind, is not really.
It's mainly reclassifying.
Yeah, only because the Department of Justice said we're not going to prosecute these offenses, so. But the best case scenario would be a reclassification and allow pharmacists to dispense it, because at least then you have some control over how it's dispensed, where it can be dispensed, and I'm not sure people would have a problem in as much as they would expect pharmacies to dispense it the way they dispense other narcotics.
Right?
So.
Yeah.
All right, I have a question that actually has to do with the way that the state banned the dispensing. When I read through the opinion and everything that they did, the way I understood it, or what I came to understand, was that basically they were saying that patient-to-patient transfers were not legal, and then all the dispensaries in the state closed down. And then, so my question is, that is limiting in one way, but at the same time, does that say that there are other uses that could possibly be approved by the state? Say, for instance, caregiver transfers?
Well, I think
Dispensaries?
any permissible, the statute is this way, so that if it's not included in there, then it's not permissible. So, unless it is included within the text of the statute, it will likely be prohibited, which is the same thing they did, or the same way they interpreted that statute in terms of the dispensaries. You won't find dispensaries permitted in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. It's just not in there. And what the court did then is say it's not in there, so you can't do it. Whether or not that gets changed through legislative amendments is another issue, because this is a voter-initiated proposal. Then the amendments have to be by a 2/3 majority of the state. The chances of this getting amended in any meaningful way are probably small, unless you can wrangle up 2/3 of the legislature to do it. So.
Should our state be looking at trying to modify language by vote?
Well, I can tell you that there is legislation that's been introduced to amend the act, but the last I checked, it hadn't gone anywhere. So we'll see what happens with that. I think everybody's looking at the courts to see what they're going to do in terms of defining the particular issues. So, and I suspect that in the coming year that those cases will be heard by the Supreme Court.
So when it comes time for us to decide on this, your recommendation is to continue the moratorium based on the state versus McQueen,
Well, I think you could do
without getting us in any kind of hot water for delaying.
Well, I think there's always a risk in anything you do. So the risk in proceeding is that you get it wrong, and you have to go back and do it over again when the court rules. The risk in delaying is you haven't regulated it, you've extended your moratorium. In some cases, moratoriums have gone on for 3 years, and the courts have upheld those. In my mind, at least, this case is certainly ripe for a moratorium extension because of the unsettled state of the law. A municipality can't, I don't think, in good conscience, say, we know exactly how to regulate this. The law has told us how we're going to regulate this. Because the law has changed so many times within the last year. So you could take one of two approaches. Either one, you could extend the moratorium, understanding there's a risk in everything you do. Or two, you could prohibit dispensaries, period, and leave it at that. So we're going to prohibit the use of property in any zoning district in the city of Cadillac as a dispensary, period. and then see and wait and watch the courts, and then you may have to go back and revisit that issue. So if you want some, what I'll call interim finality to it, you could adopt that approach. I think because of the cost of amending your regulations, publication costs, public hearing costs, I think it's more prudent to wait and see whether the court defines the parameters of what you can do and do it one time.
Anyone else have anything for Mike, since he came a long way, has a lot on his plate, but
Sick kids.
The kids and a sick wife.
That's not
Whammy,
funny, I don't mean to laugh.
Oh, hey.
We've all
trust
been
me.
there.
Trust me, it was humorous this morning, so, yeah, very humorous. So, it all worked out.
good. Glad you came. Mr. Adams, anything?
No, we just
Okay.
appreciate Mike coming and
Gentlemen,
very much.
you good?
Thank you very
Gentlemen?
much.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
thanks, Mike.
you.
We'll let
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay,
I don't know if you want to.
maybe not tonight.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
I'd just like to say that I guess, Mike and we've been, doing just as Mike has suggested to, just hold off and not do anything. And,
Right.
I know that the
Offer
city
what
Cadillac
services we can.
is pretty, up and coming, city here and everything. And we like, I know that you guys don't like to drag your feet on things. I just feel like you guys have been dragging your feet, waiting for the state to do something, and I'd like you guys to try to do something. Instead of just waiting, finally, please do something.
Agreed. Okay.
That's all.
Wonderful. We're on that page, but, yeah, okay. Hands are talk. Okay. Do we have to do anything else with that information this evening, sir?
No, it's just for informational purposes only,
Okay.
okay?
So at this time, we don't have to renew what we have in place yet?
Not tonight, no.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. All righty, so that's going to bring us to revisions to the sign ordinance. Am I in the right
Sure, let's.
place right now?
If I might, I'll just go back quickly.
Yes.
Again, if you have any ideas or thoughts on additional projects for the downtown, just, you can give me a call, email me, send me a note, whatever, after you've had an opportunity to go through that list. Be appreciated, so,
Sure thing.
okay?
Wonderful.
Okay, the last item, as you know, we've been talking about possible revisions to the sign ordinance, particularly with respect to the temporary off-premises downtown signs. Well, since we met last, and really I've got two things I want to bring you up to date on. A few weeks ago, we received a call from the Michigan Department of Transportation, and they wanted to meet, which we did. We met in the field, in fact. And essentially what MDOT told us, and again, this is in your packet, is that they are not going to allow off-premise signs within essentially what are known as clear vision areas. And they did provide us with, at the various intersections in the downtown, they did provide us with some intersection drawings, and this is just a depiction. This happens to be the Mitchell-Cass Street intersection. They're not saying we can't have temporary signs at the intersections, but they aren't going to be allowed essentially in those areas you see in red. And again, this is just those are approximate, which is where the signs are currently located. They're in the most visible part of the intersection, and it really doesn't matter who the sign is for. And so MDOT controls Mitchell Street. They essentially regulate it pretty much from building face to building face. That's within the right-of-way throughout much of Mitchell. They indicated they're not really going to come down heavily right now. Because they know we're working on this. So we're in the process of really analyzing what this might mean for downtown signage. And but it does have an impact on what we've been doing, and so we've got to regroup, you might say. At the same time, I think it was Commissioner Schichtel that had the thought, I believe it was, of what about doing a message board sign in the downtown to a changeable copy type message board, maybe an electronic LED type sign, and might there be an intersection where a sign like that might go? Well, we have possibly identified really the clock tower intersection, a modification of the tower as a possibility for a changeable copy message board sign. And this week, we are having someone, a sign company, they are going to be coming in looking at what it would take to implement a reader board, message board type sign as part of that facility. That right now the facility has some older signs on it that really are not applicable anymore to the downtown to a large degree. A number of modifications could be made. I have no idea what it would cost, whether it's going to work or not. We're also going to have the firm look at some other intersections as well, but this probably is the most appropriate intersection. So that's in the works, and we'll be bringing back their findings to you in October. And in the meantime, again, we've got to rethink MDOT's position on this and to see what we can do in the downtown. I asked MDOT, what brought this on, and essentially what happened was it was a series or an article, I guess, in the Cadillac News that highlighted a particular person's sign, and that prompted them to say, look, maybe we better start, being a little more. Maybe we should regulate like we're supposed to regulate. So that's what's essentially going to happen. And I don't want to give you the wrong idea. MDOT's been very cooperative in working with us. It's just, and they recognize that within those intersection or clear vision areas, there are currently visual impediments already, such as light poles and traffic signals and so forth. Their concern is that with the addition of signs, it just further blocks clear vision opportunities. It creates not only congestion, impacts sight lines, but it also disrupts a driver's thought process. He or she, they should be thinking about the intersection and what are we supposed to be doing as opposed to reading signs. So that's, just wanted to bring you up to date. We will be coming back hopefully in October with a lot more information about what we may be able to do in terms of some wayfinding improvements in the downtown. Just didn't want you to think we've stopped, so.
See, I would challenge, Jerry, the idea of the farmers market signs in maybe the red area. Doesn't seem to be people just be coming up and taking a right turn there. It wouldn't block anything.
The signs are all, right now, whether it's the farm market or any of the signs, they're in those red areas.
I've seen the downtown signs too in there.
Yeah, they're all in the red areas.
The micro festival.
They can't be in the red areas. It can be outside the red areas, and that may be what we have to go to.
Mr. Leptax then backed off. Originally, he sent you an email on Friday. It said absolutely no signs, period.
Well,
that was his
they're willing to
message.
work with us.
He's back. He's been more flexible.
They want to work with us.
Right.
And so we're trying to work things out.
Agreed. And actually, now that I've been more aware of it, wow.
There's a lot out there, isn't there?
Oh, wow. There was a North End unnamed business.
A sale.
Yeah. That had
5 or
stuff
6.
way in the city.
Way overboard.
Oh, yeah.
Like
They were
every
contacted
corner.
on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Okay.
And it was interesting. Without naming the business.
Right.
Not located in the city.
No.
But she asked me if I would, they contracted with a company, would you mind contacting? I said, no, it's up to you to contact. And she says, well, can I have your cell phone number? I said, sure. And so about an hour later, I got a phone call from the company. And interestingly, evidently from what he told me, originally they put the signs in the township. The township prohibited them, And so they said, well, let's try putting them in the communities outside the township.
They did.
And so anyways, I said, well, they've got to be removed, and I gave them until, I think it was noon on Sunday, and they were all gone. But talked with MDOT too. MDOT had already removed a number of them.
Figure.
But I mean, that's just an example of what.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the more I've been aware of it, my eyes are opened, and wow, there's issues.
Where I was Saturday morning, and I went to get some gas for my lawnmower, and I'm on South Street, mind you. This is between Glenn's and Rite Aid, and not on Mitchell, but South Street. And here's two signs. And I just about, oh, geez.
Yeah.
So anyways, it prompted a call and it got taken care of, but that's the way it is.
Are we ever going to have not ever, but are we going to have a meeting with the city council and the DDA and this board? Wouldn't that make sense?
It will, once we get things kind of pared down, once we get a little more concrete information on what's feasible or practical, then I think it would be a good idea. In fact, that was mentioned by the DDA. In one of their suggestions that I read earlier, is maybe we should get different organizations together, groups, and talk about this. So I think it's a great idea.
I just see the city council being more flexible than maybe the planning commission, or at least our initial discussions are conservative. And DDA is really conservative about these.
Right, well, we need to get this resolved while the winter time is here.
Right.
I don't want this to be an issue in the spring.
No.
Particularly for like the farmers market and others. So,
But then, like you say, the more I drive around and see this, I'm like, how are you going to police this?
it's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible. So, no action, I just wanted to bring you up to date on what's going on, so.
That's really helpful.
It is. I mean, at least it shows you parts of the puzzle of, okay, these are no-nos, and
Well, just
But-
to read it as, clear vision areas, well, what exactly is a clear vision area and what does it extend to? And
right.
so that
I can see if you're taking a left turn, let's say coming up from the lake up to the theater area, and you take a left and there's a sign on your left side, a car coming. But on the right side, that's the way the traffic's going, and it wouldn't be a problem. So maybe two of those could be removed theoretically, as
I wonder if it's more of a distracted driver rather than sign blocking view. I don't know.
I think it's a combination of a lot of factors, David. I think it's those as well as others.
Yeah, because I agree with Bill, what he's saying. It does, it doesn't make sense, but what else, why else would they make that area the same? And
Yeah.
maybe that might be one of the...
distractions. Lighted signs are a problem for MDOT a lot of times. So some
Like that
folks-
big blinking one down on the north end in Herring
Yeah,
Township?
that should have been,
That you can see from Manton?
that one?
Really?
Or at least the city dump or the township,
Yeah.
county
probably
dump?
Manton. But
Oh.
there's others that want to have a vibrant
different
town
one,
with
okay.
activities, and the signs sometimes lead to activities. That's one of the ways you point out what's happening. And business people are probably overboard on wanting signs, getting their message out. The pro-business club.
That's all I have.
Really? Wow. Okay. Table items none. Board member comments? Anyone?
Sorry I was late, I had a case in Lake City. I was marveling at all the marijuana discussion, yet alcohol is totally legal, and
You know.
counting the number of clients I have that have screwed up their lives with
Alcohol?
alcohol, and not necessarily marijuana, and then the violence that comes along with drinking and/or fighting, and just trying to figure out when the last person got in a fight after he was smoking marijuana that ended up dead, but it's not very often. But you see that.
Write your congressman, change it from a 1 to a 3.
There you go.
There,
Text him.
there. That would actually simplify things.
Or it makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Is that it for the board? Okay.
I would like to really get this sign thing resolved. I think it's been going on way too long.
Agreed.
But I think
and-
with
Right.
hopefully with what Jerry brings next month, I think we really do need to make a decision here, one way or the other.
hopefully it'll be a good resolution to make all sides happy.
And I think Bill's suggestion, or Mayor Barnett, to incorporate all of the groups involved, I think is good. That way it saves a lot of back and forth, and we can have some good discussion. And
Right.
Just think the bath water on the different boards is at a different temperature. You put them all together and maybe come together and go up or down, or at least have a mutual 98.6.
Okay.
I think
Any more, are you done? Sorry.
that's discussion, I think,
Okay.
that you asked for.
Yeah, I did. I did ask for it.
I just think
But,
the more groups we get together, the better for idea exchange and
And that we're all on the same page, and hopefully, like, as David mentioned, moving forwards.
I was actually hoping to do that tonight. I told him, I was like, man, I hope
After
we
I
get this
read
sign
the
thing
other stuff,
resolved.
I knew that wasn't gonna happen, but at least it is still moving forwards towards the direction that
Yes.
hopefully is the happy direction.
what do we do about all the things that Jerry was reading when I came in, which are the ideas of the
Those are
DDA?
Ideas that they're having, and
What's- do
you
we-
can think of any additionals to,
You have to vote on each one of them.
we already did that, so you gotta,
Just submit
you
yours.
have to stay.
I got the page without 28 and 29, so I know something's up.
Okay. Any more public comment this evening? You gotta tell us who you are, even though we know that, but.
Jean Kohler, and I'm the farmer market manager. Our market will be done in October, so you won't have to worry about our signs after that, till next year. And hopefully we'll come up with some sort of a good problem.
Agreed, Gene.
Because if we can't have a sign someplace on Main Street or in the area, we're gonna have to find a different place to have a market, because we have to have signage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just on your desk, I put a little 3-page, it's a little flyer. Each month for the DDA, we do it's called Downtown Happenings, and a lot of the stuff may be old news, so to speak, but it might be of interest. I thought maybe the Planning Commission would like to get a copy of that as well. So just let you know some things that are going on in the downtown. With that, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're gonna go. Thank you, everybody.